Hello, my name is Sister Deborah Wilson. Before I was an MSBT, I was a member of an MCA in Louisiana that was started and supported by several ST. Wherever I've served during my many years as a missionary servant, I've always looked for ways to support the MCA locally or regionally. And as a result, I have a lot of experience to draw from, both successes and failures. I want to pass on 3 important principles I have learned from my successes and failures. I recognize that cultural and generational differences can have a huge effect on what strategies work or don't work in any given situation. However, I believe these principles apply regardless of culture or generation. It's up to you to adapt your strategies to work with whoever's standing in front of you. But what principles do your strategies flow from? The first principle that I want to highlight is to target potential vocations. Article 8 of the MSBT Rule of Life begins, "We are to call forth apostolic men and women from everyday walks of life to become associates in the missionary Senecal apostolate." It couldn't be more clear that we have an explicit obligation to do vocation work for the MCA. I can tell you 2 things that don't work very well, and 1 thing that does. I've tried this approach, talking about the MCA, announcing meetings, putting out brochures, explaining what it is, and so on. And that's a passive approach. I've at times acted as if the MCA is so obviously great, if people only knew about it, they'd want to join. As if a simple exposure to the concept will attract vocations. But call forth is an action, and passive exposure doesn't really work. I've also tried this approach, the come and see, hosting an event and inviting the world. This is action, but it's ineffective. If you make an announcement at Mass to invite anyone who's interested to come learn about the MCA, you'll get the nice people who come to support you or come because they got everything. This broadcast invitation to the world attracts joiners, but it doesn't necessarily attract apostolic men and women because those are the people who are too busy to come to meetings. This is the only thing I have found that really seems to work. Get to know the people at your mission. Pay attention. Who is already looking or sounding apostolic? Who shows leadership skills? Who loves the church and is involved in advancing the mission of the church beyond the church walls? And invite those people personally to come and listen to what you have to say about the MCA. Start small because those are the busy people. Just ask for 1 meeting and work from there. So principle number 1 is to target potential vocations. And for that, you need to know what you're looking for. You need to take action when you find it. And you need to have a follow-up plan already in place. Personal invitation is the most effective approach. Principle number 2 is respect the vocation. One of the biggest mistakes missionary servants can make with the MCA is to forget that belonging to the missionary Senecal apostolate is a specific vocation in the church, and not everyone is called to it. The reason we so often forget this is because we all know that every Catholic is called to be an apostle. And so we make the unconscious leap to the idea that every Catholic could, in theory, be called to the MCA. This way of thinking can have 2 bad outcomes. First, we might look at an apostolic Catholic and say, there's no need to bring up the MCA. This person doesn't need it. That attitude demotes the MCA to the level of a tool or a technique we use to form an apostolic spirit and nothing more. The other bad result of forgetting that membership in the MCA is a specific vocation within the church is that we try too hard to include everybody. We invite everybody indiscriminately to join, and then we try too hard to keep people in that are really discerning that they're not called to the MCA. An apostolic lay Catholic is not identical to a member of the missionary synodical apostolate. Think about the word membership. We missionary servants are very, very clear about who belongs to our institutes and who does not. It's not about how apostolic you are. It's not about whether you can sing the doxology or name the synodical virtues or tell the stories of our founding. Members apply. They're screened. They're formed. And they are allowed to join by permission of elected leadership. Members have rights and responsibilities. Members have a voice in the conduct of their internal affairs. If we forget that these same norms apply to the MCA, we are disrespecting the MCA. This brings me to the last point about the MCA vocation. Like any vocation, a person needs time and guidance to discern if God is calling him or her to the MCA. If you're trying to start a new MCA or invite new members to join an existing MCA, it helps if you think of yourself as a vocation director and not as a recruiter. A vocation director's primary job is to help a person discern God's call. You may be convinced that this person would be a perfect member, but ultimately there's this sacred space in that person that belongs to God. Your job is to provide information, to encourage, to support, but never to press you or argue or convince. If someone you invite does a good discernment and decides not to join the MCA, you have done your job as a vocation director. We often neglect to follow the MCA's own rules about their formation process. The MCA Constitution requires a period of orientation before someone can be accepted into candidacy. There's a minimum of 3 sessions, and the topics to be covered are listed in the Constitution. In fact, there's a 7-session guide called Orientation to Candidacy, and it's available from Missionary Synodical Press, and it's also available in Spanish in Word as Word documents. It's not printed. This Orientation to Candidacy is designed to cover those topics. But even more importantly, it's designed to support a process of discernment. You may choose who to invite to join the MCA, but it's God who calls. Don't be disappointed if you invite 20 people and only 4 or 5 make it to candidacy. Principle number 2 is respect the vocation. Principle number 3 may sound a little odd, but I think it's important. Do formation without history. The most effective tool to attract and form and keep members is to provide a healthy community and build relationships. But you'd think that the most effective tool is to tell the story of Father Judge and Mother Boniface, because that's where we always start, and we emphasize that all along. But they don't know who those people are. They know you, and that is their starting point. What would formation without history look like? Well, maybe you could spend some time reflecting on that yourself. I'm going to give you what I have come up with. And listen, I'm not saying that they don't need to know history. I'm just saying to hold off on it. That shouldn't be how you start. I see 3 strategies for doing initial formation without bringing up Father Judge. First, as I already said, local relationships are the foundation. Who are the flesh and blood people already in the cenacle who you interact with, work with, share faith with? These relationships are real, they're tangible, they're not romanticized. We're relational, we're Trinitarian. Before a candidate knows anything else about the MCA, they will know if they feel comfortable, if they feel accepted or attracted to the group of people they're discerning with. So formation without history demands attention to the health of the local community. The second way to do formation without history is to do deep reflection on cenacle devotions and practices. The Catholic Church holds a vast treasure of devotions that a Catholic can pick from. But the cenacle devotions are a very specific list. A potential member is not free to dismiss our list and choose a different sect. And there's 3 reasons for that. First, that would be a sign they're called to some other spiritual family and not ours. Second, our list of devotions isn't random. Our devotions function to help us be better at carrying out our mission. Our devotions are not pretty pictures we hang on a wall to give us pleasure. Our devotions affect our behavior. That's why we talk about practical devotions. And the third reason for doing this deep reflection on devotions is that our devotions identify us and unite us across cultures and generations. No matter where I am, and no matter who I am with in the cenacle family, we should be able to speak this same common language of our devotions to the Trinity, the Eucharist, the Holy Spirit, and so on. And I have had that experience. The third way to do formation without history is to develop and share mission experiences. A candidate needs to learn to think of himself or herself as a missionary in daily life, in their own providence, wherever they happen to be. Guide them to discover what their unique mission is. Candidates need to learn to reflect on their day and ask themselves how they acted as a missionary. You may need to find opportunities for missionary outreach. You need to help them find it. For opportunities for missionary outreach in their neighborhood or their city. Or you may need to help them recognize how they are already living out their missionary vocation so that they can begin to grow as missionaries. But in either case, you need to help them learn how to share those experiences in their cenacle. We're not living out our missionary vocation as isolated individuals. The cenacle way is fundamentally relational, and that means sharing and listening with other members. So, let me sum up. All members of the missionary cenacle are obliged to call forth apostolic men and women to become members of the MCA. You can do it. Vocation and formation work is best done as a collaborative effort. So don't be intimidated. Have confidence that when you're working on this as a team, that you're going to have all the gifts you need within the group. And remember, target potential vocations, respect the vocation, and do initial formation without history. God bless you.